Saito walks through the school hallways on his way to class, where he encounters a cute girl who is apparently waiting for him. The girl, named Akane, grabs him by the tie and threatens to hurt him if he tells anyone about their relationship. We now know that they are newlyweds, and Akane, who is Saito's archenemy, considers her to be the most annoying girl in the entire school. 4 days earlier, Akane scolded Saito for not putting in effort in the class register, where he simply wrote that nothing noteworthy happened. Saito justified himself, saying that it was just a boring day. Akane also scolded him for not cleaning the blackboard at the end of the day and for writing a Chinese proverb about demons. Frustrated, Saito ignored her, claiming that no one reads them anyway, but Akane insisted that she did. Saito called the whole situation a nuisance and accused her of having nothing better to do than bother him. Akane retorted that she was just trying to correct his bad attitude. A cute blonde girl named Himari interrupted their fight, asking Akane not to be so harsh on him. Akane tried to explain her frustration, accusing Saito of disrespecting the class and everyone in it. Himari noticed that her friend seemed strangely obsessed with Saito, something Akane had never considered. However, she realized that every time she saw Saito, her blood boiled and she just wanted to hit him. Another girl, Shisei, Saito's cousin and adored by her classmates for her sweetness, intervened in the fight. Shisei asked if they were fighting again. Saito explained that it wasn't a fight and that she was attacking him for no reason. Shisei sympathized and comforted him, while Himari suggested that Akane might have feelings for him. They both vehemently denied it, saying that they could never be together, even if the world ended. After school, Saito's grandfather Hojo called him and asked him to visit him, but he refused. Hojo reminded him that he would inherit his vast company, but Saito continued to refuse. His grandfather then sent men to force him to go. Saito got into the car and asked where they were going, but the driver remained silent under Hojo's orders. It seemed that the Hojo group was once on the verge of bankruptcy, until Grandpa Hojo turned it into a high-tech powerhouse. Years later, he still remained in charge of the company. Saito was taken to his grandfather's house, where he encountered Akane, who immediately demanded to know what he was doing there. Saito replied that his grandfather had forced him, and apparently Akane's grandmother had done the same to her. The two began to fight simply because they were close to each other when his grandparents arrived in a large car, apparently with a plan in mind. Inside, Grandpa laid out a sumptuous banquet to celebrate. Akane only drank water, saying that she lost her appetite just by being around Saito. He retorted that her pheromones made everyone lose their appetite. The grandparents laughed at their absurd bickering, as it reminded them of their youth. Saito asked why they had been summoned, and the grandparents finally revealed their intention. They want both of them to get married. The teenagers were shocked by the proposal. The grandparents explained that they had fallen in love in high school, but never pursued their love due to silly fights. They took different paths, but now they wanted to fulfill their love through their grandchildren. The teenagers flatly refused, insisting that they could not be forced into marriage. Grandpa Hojo, expecting this, brought a stray dog and threatened to leave the company and all his wealth to the dog if Saito did not agree. Saito accused his grandfather of being crazy, but Hojo was willing to ruin the company to get what he wanted. Meanwhile, Grandma Chiyo whispered something in Akane's ear that caused her to panic. Grandma urged them to consider the long-term benefits and gave them 3 days to decide. On their way out, Akane asked Saito if he planned to marry her. Saito didn't know how to answer and asked what his grandmother had said, but Akane refused to answer. Saito insisted on knowing the details, but Akane remained silent. That night, Akane lay in bed, recalling her jealousy and frustration at finding out that Saito had surpassed her on the school ranking list. Confused, she called Himari to ask what she would do if she was forced to marry someone she didn't like. Himari replied that she would refuse, especially since she was in love with someone. Akane, shocked, asked for details, but Himari was taken aback by her friend's sudden interest and teased her, saying that she wouldn't reveal the person for the time being. Himari then asked if Akane liked anyone. Akane replied that she just wanted someone to disappear, preferably being hit in the head by a meteorite. Hearing this, Himari suggested that she agree to the marriage, as it would be fun to share her life with someone. Akane doesn't think that's a good enough reason, especially since she's worried about what might happen in bed. Himari agrees and jokingly advises her to have 100 children, as she only needs 20 sets of quintuplets. Akane says that her body wouldn't survive that. Meanwhile, Saito reflects on what happened and thinks that marrying Akane would be a fatal mistake. Shisei notices her worried expression and asks her what's wrong. He tells her that if she wants to inherit the Hojo company, she has to let her grandfather control her life. Shisei is not surprised by his grandfather's tactics and asks what Saito wants. Saito replies that he wants to inherit the company and live his life freely. Shisei sits on his lap and tells him that he can't have it all. No one lives completely free, as the world is full of rules. He adds that if he values his freedom over the company, she would happily become a vagabond and rummage through trash with him. Saito knows that wouldn't be right, and Shisei assures him that he won't stand in his way, but promises to always support him. The next day, Saito meets with Akane to try to come to a mutual agreement. 3 days later, they meet with their grandparents to announce their decision. They both agree to get married. They are both surprised by each other's response, as they never came to a proper agreement, but individually concluded that it was the best option. Afterwards, Saito assumes that the wedding will take place after graduation, but his grandfather corrects him. It will start immediately, and they have even arranged a house for the couple. The grandparents take the couple to their newly built house, which is already fully furnished and filled with their belongings to prevent them from running away. They have also already done the marriage papers. Everything is ready. Without saying anything else, the grandparents leave them alone. Akane begs her grandmother to take her back, but they don't use it. As they explore the house, Akane accuses Saito of making the beautiful house unbearable, while Saito says that she ruined his dream of having a bachelor pad. In the bathroom, they discover a heart-shaped jacuzzi, which makes them both feel uncomfortable. Saito finds a study and plans to use it for privacy when he hears Akane scream. He rushes to find her in the master bedroom, horrified by the discovery that there is only one bed. Angry, Saito calls his grandfather to complain, but the old man tells him that this is how marriage works. They must follow the rules. No sleeping on the floor or on the couches. They must share the bed. Grandma Chiyo wishes Akane luck, hinting that she will deal with Saito in the evening, but she refuses to do anything. Saito, hearing that there are rules, wonders if there might be cameras or sensors in the house. Akane, scared and nervous, asks him if he plans to take advantage of her all night. Saito has no idea what she's talking about. She tells him she's noticed how he looks at her from head to toe and accuses him of having dirty thoughts all day, but she won't let that happen, threatening him with a pencil. Saito tells her he would never do such a thing, and Akane ends up running out of the room. Later, Akane carries boxes upstairs, but she stumbles and nearly falls. Saito catches her just in time. Akane thanks him but quickly retracts her gratitude, remembering who he is. For dinner, the grandparents had left them a dinner since they assumed the couple would be too busy to cook. While eating pizza, Saito offers Akane a slice, but she accuses him of trying to act like a married couple. He responds that you don't have to be married to eat together. Akane reluctantly takes a slice and runs off. That night, as Saito lies exhausted on the bed, Akane enters the room, blushing. She lies on her side, noticing the bed is too small. Saito suspects this is another part of their grandparents' scheme. Feeling the warmth of her body and catching her scent, he becomes uneasy. Akane warns him not to try anything, confessing that she's inexperienced since she's never had a boyfriend. Saito admits he's inexperienced too, so they agree they're safe. Saito asks again why she agreed to marry him, but she avoids answering, saying she's willing to follow the rules to achieve her dream. Saito fears one of those rules might involve having children. Alarmed, Akane jumps, accidentally colliding her hip with his hand. Furious, she threatens to break his finger, but he insists it was an accident. Their first day of marriage ends with this misunderstanding. The next day at school, Akane threatens Saito, warning him not to tell anyone about their marriage. Saito agrees, but Akane is paranoid that he'll tell everyone they share a bed. He reassures her that he wouldn't do that. Akane believes him, but insists on recording his promise and threatens to destroy the world if he breaks it.
Akane orders Saito not to mention the word marriage, as she doesn't want to risk their classmates finding out about their marriage. He understands and agrees. Upon entering, Himari asks Akane what she was discussing with Saito, since it sounded like they were having an argument. Akane lies and says she just told him never to speak to her. Saito sits at his desk and Shisei approaches him. She immediately notices he's using a new shampoo and asks where he spent the night. Saito tries to lie, saying his father bought new shampoo, but Shisei also smells a girl's scent on him and bites his neck, revealing that she knows he got married. She confesses that she investigated his grandfather and discovered everything. Saito takes her to the hallway to talk. Shisei is upset that he didn't tell her about the marriage and is tempted to expose it. She demands payment for her silence. When Saito asks her price, she isn't sure yet, so she promises to tell him later, making it clear his life is now in her hands. Returning to the classroom, Akane scolds Saito for not putting things away after gym class. Fed up, Saito explains he spoke to the teacher and left the equipment out for the next class. Akane insists that a meteor could fall, canceling class, and during the evacuation, someone might trip over the things he left. Everyone sighs as they watch the argument. Himari explains their fights are famous, and classmates see them as a comical newlywed couple. Akane explodes, insisting they are not married. At home, Akane screams upon discovering the fridge full of juice. Saito explains it's concentrated vegetable juice packed with vitamins to keep them healthy. Alarmed, Akane asks if he doesn't want a balanced diet. Saito reveals a pantry stocked with instant noodles, describing them as fast, cheap, and delicious. Akane asks about protein. Saito suggests blending protein shakes with the vegetable juice, claiming it's the simplest cooking method. Akane refuses to eat such artificial and tasteless food. Saito shares that he worked hard to trick his taste buds into believing the meals tasted good. Akane realizes that if they keep eating like this, their marriage won't last, which she cannot allow. She prepares a homemade meal, convinced Saito will praise and thank her. Suspicious that she might have poisoned it, Saito tastes the meal cautiously. It reminds him of when his parents abandoned him and his grandfather adopted him. Akane asks for his opinion. Saito responds that it's passable. Angered, Akane tries to give the meal to stray dogs, but Saito fights for the plate and devours the food before she can take it. Furious, Akane curses him for eternity. In his mind, Saito admits it's the most satisfying meal he's ever had, and he's never been cursed for finishing his food before. The next morning, Akane tries to wake him. Saito, dreaming of Shiho, asks to sleep a bit longer and pulls Akane into bed beside him. Embarrassed, she wakes him with a shout. She scolds him for not washing the dishes after dinner. Saito suggests using other plates and promises to wash them when they're all dirty, but she forces him to wash them immediately. Later, she reprimands him for leaving trash in the bathroom. Saito proposes taking out the trash once a month, shocking Akane, who calls him a pig. He accuses her of being a clean freak and admits he dislikes being forced to bathe daily. Akane can't believe they're having this argument and weeps over who she's living with. In a serious tone, Saito asks her to leave him alone unless it's important. On the way to school, they wonder how differently they see things and question if they can continue living this way. After school, Saito relaxes by playing a zombie game in the living room. Akane asks him to lower the volume since she wants to study. Shocked by the violent game, she covers her eyes. He tries to explain the game's premise, but Akane doesn't care and demands he turn it off, believing such games make people violent criminals. Saito calls her prejudiced. When Akane tries to take the controller, they fight over the console until the doorbell rings. Akane lets go of the console, making Saito trip and disconnect it. She says the rest of his belongings have arrived and finds him depressed over losing his game. He goes to take a bath to relax after dealing with Akane. Opening the bathroom door, he discovers Akane using the tub. Saito quietly closes the door and considers leaving but worries she might have fainted. He knocks and asks if she's okay. Receiving no response, he enters to check on her and finds her asleep. Knowing it's dangerous, he tries to wake her. Dreaming, Akane orders Saito to sleep in the doghouse. Akane stumbles. Saito, worried she'll drown, tries to pull her out, but he trips, making Akane fall on top of him. She wakes up, accuses him of taking advantage, and chaos ensues. Akane pulls him out of the bathroom. Saito tries to explain what happened, but Akane is worried he might have seen too much something Saito can't deny, causing her anger to flare even more. Later, Akane prepares for bed while reflecting on the incident. Although embarrassed, she starts thinking that Saito was probably just trying to help. She goes to bed where Saito is silently reading. Lying next to him, she attempts to bring up the topic again, but Saito refuses to discuss it. Feeling sad and powerless, Akane falls asleep. The next day, Himari notices Akane's sadness and asks what's wrong. Akane bursts into tears, admitting T here is someone she doesn't get along with but wishes she could. Himari quickly realizes Akane is talking about Saito. Akane immediately denies it, but Himari points out how Saito has caught her attention since their first year. Akane insists she would never associate with him. Himari suggests giving that person a hug to build a connection. Akane dismisses the idea, saying it's impossible to hug that person. Himari then advises trying to understand them by talking. Akane knows this is easier for Himari, who is good with people and liked by everyone. Himari counters that this isn't true and says the key isn't winning others' respect, but respecting them first. Meanwhile, Saito is having lunch with Shiho, who notices her cousin looks downcast. Saito says he's tired of feeling exhausted and is ready to have another argument with his partner. Shiho suggests getting a divorce, but Saito knows that would make all his efforts to inherit the Hojo group pointless. Shiho then recommends getting along with Akane to avoid conflicts. Saito claims it's impossible since they're total opposites. Shiho remarks that humans are animals, so compatibility might be a challenge, but in his case, she believes it's just laziness. She advises finding a middle ground and trying to understand Akane's perspective. Saito agrees. Shiho then asks him to carry her in his arms. When Saito questions why, she says it melts any girl's heart. Returning home, Saito plans to talk with Akane but finds her looking even angrier than usual. He decides to wait for a calmer moment, but Akane cuts him off, asking for a conversation. Thinking she's asking for a divorce, Saito is surprised when Akane says she wants to find a way to get along better and stay married. They sit at the table with cups of tea. Akane admits she dislikes him but agrees they need to make things more manageable. Saito proposes setting ground rules to ease tensions and find a middle ground. Akane likes the idea and first addresses household chores, complaining that since their marriage, she's had to handle everything. Saito argues he prefers washing clothes and dishes after they've piled up. Akane counters that this invites pests, while Saito calls it part of nature. Akane explains it spreads germs and risks their health. Remembering Shiho's advice, Saito agrees to wash dishes right after using them. Akane asks if he has any requests and promises to listen. Saito asks for patience when they brush against each other in bed. Akane interprets this as ignoring his touch attempts, but Saito clarifies that the bed is so small he can barely move. Akane agrees as long as he doesn't touch her under her clothes. Akane then requests he play games with headphones and out of her sight. Eventually, they finalize their rules. Saito adds that relationships work better when both parties make an effort to show gratitude. Akane asks him to compliment her cooking, even if it's not exceptional. Saito questions whether he should do so regardless of the quality, and Akane insists since she puts great effort into it. Saito explains that calling her cooking mediocre was meant as a compliment, a concept Akane doesn't understand. Before bed, Akane recounts the situation to Himari over the phone, who congratulates her for taking the first steps. Hearing Saito approach, Akane ends the call. When Saito enters, he finds Akane lying in bed, looking embarrassed but giving him permission to touch her if he wants. Saito clarifies he only meant accidental contact. The next day, Saito returns home with Shiho, telling her that while things have improved, the war isn't over. Shiho suggests playing with Akane, but Saito calls her vulgar and asks for a favor. At home, Saito surprises Akane with a strawberry cake, her favorite. Shocked, Akane asks how he knew. Saito says he remembered it from her first-year essay, something even Akane had forgotten. He apologizes, confessing he has a talent for remembering useless information. Akane thanks him for the thoughtful gesture. As they sit down to eat, it's clear Akane put great effort into the meal. Saito tries it and admits it's delicious. Afterward, he washes the dishes, suspecting Akane has ulterior motives. She approaches and offers to help. Saito accuses her of being overly kind, frustrating Akane, who only wanted to lend a hand. Saito accepts her help and, for the first time, notices how pretty her smile is.